Hey everyone, this video is like a second part or a continuation of a discussion that we're having with one of my patrons, Stephen M. In the first one, which is called Social Media Can Have Its Benefits, we're talking about the positive and negative effects that social media can have in our lives. And I'll link to that first video in the description, but just as a really super quick summary, as someone who struggles with anxiety, struggles in social situations, there is some benefit to social media in that it can allow us to make connections where otherwise we might not have any. If you're someone who literally has no one in your day-to-day life to talk to, to discuss real issues with, then absolutely, connecting with somebody online, that can be really helpful. However, and what this video is centered on is that ultimately, while I do think there can be some benefits to it, I have come to the realization that social media is unhealthy and that using it too much could really be detrimental to your life. And I'll get into that. And I am saying all of this with the understanding that I am someone who at one point in time in my career, I was using social media to do almost everything. When I covered television, part of my job was that I ran the Twitter accounts for the different shows that we covered. So at one point in time during that career, I think I was managing like 10 different Twitter accounts for these different shows. So I'm someone who's had to use it professionally in that capacity, and I'm now someone that's using it personally to try to spread this message that I really believe there's a serious attack on free speech in this country right now. And so, the most obvious thing to jump to when you're thinking about the negatives of social media is the suppression of free speech. I've talked about that a lot, and I'm going to keep talking about that. It's something I'm very passionate about, and I understand it means I have to use the very platforms that I'm protesting against. I have to use them to spread my message. So I do acknowledge that, but at the same time, it would be, I would not be doing my job as someone who tries to advocate for better mental health services, and an increased focus on self-care and self-assessment, honest self-assessment. That I know that part, that can be hard. It's hard for me. I'm not always good at that part. But so on that angle, I've been doing some research for this video, and I came across a lot of studies that caught my eye, and I'm going to link to everything in the description. But and I'm not going to sit here and bog you down with a whole bunch of statistics. That's not why I'm here. You can read all of that stuff. There's a couple numbers I want to draw your attention to. So I found these two recent Pew studies, one from March and one from September. The one from March shows that 73% of Americans are on YouTube, 68% are on Facebook. And of the percentage that are on Facebook, nearly 3/4 log in every day. Half of them check in multiple times a day. That's important. We'll get back to that. And so additionally, the average American is active on at least 3 different platforms. And this number increases as we get to younger adults. And I'm not a younger adult anymore, but when I really sat and thought about it, I am part of that weird generation that we say had an analog childhood and a digital adulthood. So I do remember what life was like before we had these platforms. So it looks like, sorry guys, I'm getting ahead of myself on my stats. So that study came out in March. Now, we all have seen the news that Facebook use is plummeting. So a newer one that came out in September actually showed that 26% of Americans have deleted the Facebook app from their mobile devices. And I believe it's even greater among, I think their age group was 18 to 29, and I think it's at like 44%. So there's just been a mass exodus from Facebook. And I love it. I actually deleted the Facebook app from my phone a little over a month ago. And, I want to say that my life has gotten better. There's certainly less fake news in my life. There's less propaganda in my life. I haven't deleted my profile. I haven't deleted any of the profiles that I've walked away from. And, and I wouldn't recommend it, actually. And I know this is weird and I'm contradicting myself, but just hold on. So if you have a social media presence, there is a possibility that if you delete all of your profiles, you never know what could happen. Someone else could come up and take your name and possibly impersonate you. We saw, and if you think I'm lying, we saw this happen to Laura Loomer. So that's why I don't necessarily think we should all be deleting these profiles, because our information is out there. There's really no point. But you may want to do what I've done. I have a message. I've locked my FB account so no one can post on it anymore. And my last top, the post at the top is me explaining why I've left Facebook. I've also deleted Tumblr and Instagram. And on those, I have a little message at the top saying, I don't post new things to this anymore. If you want to follow my new content, then you need to go here. So, maybe you guys want to do that too. Maybe you want to consider cutting some of these from your life. Of course, there's going to be drawbacks. For me, most obviously, because I decided to walk away from Facebook, I had to walk away from volunteering for Walkaway. So it was a tough decision. And I hung on for a while. I kept telling myself I could keep doing it, even though every time I log onto Facebook, I'm miserable. And so finally, I just had to face the facts and let them know that I'm really trying to commit to staying off Facebook. And unfortunately, that means I really can't be in this group anymore in the way that I was. And I wish them all the best, but I had to make that choice because of all of the platforms that I was on. I personally found Facebook to be the most toxic. And I'm saying that as someone who spends way too much time on Twitter, and a lot of people might think Twitter is worse than Facebook. We all have our likes or dislikes. Whatever you like or don't like, and you just may need to think about which ones are benefiting you and which ones aren't. And most importantly, and I'll get back to my research here, where I think it's being a detriment, where it isn't benefiting us, is actually our mental and physical health. And there's a lot of studies that have come out in the last few years about this. I'll have links to all of that. But basically, let me summarize the studies I found, because I don't want to keep throwing facts out at you. So I found a bunch of studies, and what they show is that we're on these platforms every day. For many of us, it's multiple times a day. We know that sitting down for long periods of time is insanely unhealthy for us. But even if you're someone who gets your social media fix on like the treadmill or while you're working out, there's some scientists who believe that you're still doing physical damage to your body. And one study I found, they determined that no matter where you're from, as far as your emotional state or your popularity online, most participants in the study admitted they felt more depressed throughout the day as they continued logging into Facebook. And that was specifically Facebook. That was the only platform that they were monitoring in that study. Another one made the correlation that no matter what kind of connection we think we're making online, Did I say God correlation? Made the determination. Science was not my major. Bear with me. So they made the determination that no matter what kind of connection we might think we're making online with other people, it actually all leads to a greater sense of loneliness in our daily lives. And that loneliness, now here's the physical part. The loneliness leads to higher stress levels. The higher stress levels lead both to elevated heart rates and lowered cognitive function. Think about that, because that's important. We're not actually getting the physical connection that we think we are. We're more depressed when we log off. And that depression and the stress that we might feel while we're engaging with people on these sites, all of that could actually be screwing with our heart and screwing with our brain. So really, I have to sit here and really ask myself some hard questions. So this is what I've been thinking about, is how many hours a day are we in front of computers? How much time do we spend buried in our phones? And of that time, how much of it is on social media? Does the time spent on social media actually benefit us? And if we decide it doesn't, can we walk away from it? And if we did, how would our lives change for the better? Because just think on that. Think about, if you believe the research that I've found, which I do, you don't have to. I'll give you links to all the studies. You can read them yourself. But if I believe this research that social media is roping us in with a false sense of socialization, a false sense of connection, and it's actually making us lonelier, making us stupider, making us more unhealthy, what is the end goal? What is the goal of these giant platforms that have so much of our information and know so much about us? What exactly, why would they want the majority of Americans miserable? Why would they want the majority of Americans constantly stressed out? This I think is the bigger question. I've sort of glossed over all of these physical and mental ramifications, but combining all of it, what is the purpose? That's the huge question that's been going through my head for the last month is what is the purpose of this? And I know a lot of my followers, a lot of my readers who follow Q, who follow the deep state. I know where I'm going with all of this. What I'm trying to dance around because of the way social media platforms work. They're suppressing our speech. They're making us dumber. They're making us lazier. They're making us lonelier. So what exactly is the point? If we're all distracted and dumb, are we not easier to control? Are we not easier to take over? And I'm gonna leave planting that seed in your heads, and I know I'm saying this as someone who still spends a lot of time on social media, and I'm really starting to think about how else could I be developing my skills, developing my own interpersonal relationships? What could I be focusing on in my life when I'm not focusing on arguing with people on Twitter? So I'm not going to go away. I have a message to say. I have a point that I'm trying to make, and I'm going to keep trying to make it as long as there are people willing to listen. But I would say anyone that's listened to what I've said, anyone that's going to read what the links and the studies that I'm going to provide here, if there's a part of you that's also thinking along these same lines, that's been, ever since 2016, but especially, if you were like me and you thought there was going to be some sort of change after the midterms, if you're now even more disgusted with the vitriol and the violence that is coming from, we'll say both sides, although, I personally believe one side is a little nastier than the other. But for the sake of everyone and to be copacetic, we'll say both sides are becoming overrun by extremism, and it has made the online experience for many of us much sadder than it used to be. So that's what I'll end with, is just if you're like me and you've started noticing the negative effects that social media is having on your mental well-being, on your not just that, but how it's encouraging me to stay, seated, to stay inactive, and you guys know physical activity is really important to me. So that's the facts are out there. Social media might be able to help us make friends, but ultimately, are they really, really good friends? I met one, maybe two, like really solid friends in the last, however long, we've been on social media. I've made more through Walkaway, but just really think on it. Is it really benefiting you? Is it really benefiting your life? And if it's not, are there cuts you can make? Are there platforms you can get off of? Are there schedules you can put yourself to, where I'm only going to spend an hour a day and then I'm done? Just start thinking about it and check out some of this research. I'm going to have it all below. I wish you all good luck. I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. And all right, I'm going to leave it at that. I don't know if I've angered people now by telling you that social media is making us dumber, but I look forward to your comments below.